Yo, what's
Hello,
good?
everyone.
How's everyone doing?
Fantastic. Happy holidays, everyone.
Yes, doing
Happy
well, and
holidays.
Merry Christmas, Happy Kwanzaa, Happy
Yes.
Hanukkah,
Happy Hanukkah.
and
Hanukkah and Christmas.
soon Happy New Year.
Yeah, Hanukkah and Christmas starts on the same day. I love that. Or
Yeah,
Hanukkah starts on the same day as Christmas. I love that.
yes.
Yeah. So welcome to it. And our guest is not someone new. For those who follow my personal podcasts, um, Nzondi, welcome to Talking Back to Suicide. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Thanks for
Thank you for
having me.
taking the time again. So, in our previous conversation, for listeners out there, which was 3 hours, 20 minutes, Nzoni and I had a very lengthy conversation on many topics besides the entertainment industry. And there was a few things that you mentioned within that conversation that made me feel that coming on this show will actually suit the audience. You know, one of the mandates here is to get to the root of the issue of suicidal thoughts and
Yeah.
actually, prevent the thoughts from happening, you know.
Mhm.
So before the thoughts actually happen, let's try to stop it there. Someone goes through something, goes through a dark phase, is facing demons.
Mhm.
So let's fix it there. If they got the knowledge and they got the advice from people like us on how to handle it when it does happen, then we actually prevent the thoughts. And if we can stop it there, for me personally, it's not going to escalate. Not saying it's going to work like in all cases, but let's get to the root of it. Let's stop it there. Let's stop it before it gets to thoughts. Not let it get to the thoughts and then we have to try to prevent the
Mhm.
suicide from actually happening if
And I want
everyone
to
is
I
following
want
me
to
in
add
this.
too that, and if that thought occurs, right, that many people at times have suicidal type thoughts, to be able to acknowledge the thought, accept that that thought is happening, but then not to act on the thought, which is basically the principle of the Hold On campaign. That hold on, right? That your thinking is mixed up, and don't do something that you're going to regret forever, right? And talking back to suicide is all about our ability to have different vantage points about what are the root causes of suicidal thinking. There are many, and what we can do in a state of awareness to prevent those tragedies from happening to ourselves. It's the 11th leading cause of death in the United States. It's the second leading cause of death in young adults. In my state, Oregon, it's the 10th leading cause of death. Most deaths by firearms are suicides and not homicides. So it's a very important topic, and a topic that really needs to be brought out into the open,
Yeah.
because who knows, virtually maybe everybody knows someone personally who could be themselves, could be a family member, could be a friend, could be a worker. And certainly in the world of celebrity, right, there are many who have died of suicide, and it's just tragic. So we're trying to make a difference. And
Yes.
I feel that we are, right?
I I
Yeah,
love
yeah.
your Hold On campaign. I took some time and did some research on it, and I clicked a lot of different links and read about it and how you came about doing that. And I like to add that, uh, you know, similarly to the way when I was a teenager, I'm a late bloomer. So when I was a teenager, I realized one day that every single person uh, uses the bathroom in the same way. And it was so funny to me to realize that because it kind of made me feel like it was human, like everyone was human. I was like, wait a minute, Prince does this, the Queen of England does this, all of these. I'm like, oh my God, there's something that connects us all. And in the same breath as saying that, a few years ago, I realized when I joined, I'm part of the organization called the Horror Writers Association. And when I joined the mental health initiative wherein we wanted to educate horror authors how to be more responsible in how they portray characters with mental health issues. I realized, like you just said, Dr. Kaufman, that everyone is connected. Either I truly believe everyone has some type of mental health issue. Is we just cope with them differently. Some people can cope with them better than others. And a couple of weeks ago, I came across a post on Instagram, and I heard a young lady, I don't remember her name, she's a powerful speaker, say that a lot of times, powerful men will get with a woman and think that just because they're powerful and have all this money, or get with a mate, that they've beat the competition because they have all the money, and really they're not competing against other men for that woman's love. They're competing against her trauma. And when I heard that, I was like, wow, that's really powerful. They're competing against her trauma. So a lot of times they think they can fix everything with gifts and love and etc. But really, you have to address the elephant in the room, which is the trauma. And one of the things, and this is my last note on that, one of the things as a teacher, I taught in Long Island, Hempstead for quite a while, 13 years, mostly middle school. And I told the principal the only way I'd work there is if he allows me to do an after school program. So he put me in charge of an after school program, which was called the ACE program. He didn't even know my nickname was ACE, which stood for Alternate Center of Education. And one of the things I did there was this little exercise. I would tell all my students, I said, I want you to write down something that was unspeakable, that someone had done something very unspeakable to you. Now, here are the conditions. No one can see what you write down. No one will know what you write down. No one will know at all. But I want you to write it down. Something that something that has happened to you that is completely unspeakable, right? And once they wrote it down, it was really quiet, kind of demure in the classroom. Once they wrote it down, I said, all right, no one look on anyone else's paper. Just look at, now I want you to hold that up and I want you to look at what you wrote down. I want you to look at it. Okay. And once they looked at it, I said, has everyone taken a look at it? That thing that was unspeakable that was done to you. Now I want you to do this, everyone at the same time when I tell you to. All right. And so kind of took a second. They looked at it. I said, look at it one more time. I said, now what I want you to do, you ready, everyone? Ball it up and throw it at me as hard as you can. And they all balled up that thing and they threw it at me. And I said, release it, let it go. And it was a way of me helping them try to just, take that trauma that no one else knows about, that unspeakable trauma, ball it up and just release it. And I needed them to throw it as hard as they could at me, at the board, and just release it. And that exercise, a lot of the students told me helped them. I'm not saying it healed their trauma or whatnot, but it was like a step towards their healing. And I believe campaigns like the Hold On campaign, where you had this beautiful book about the bird that can fly that was turned into this, opera, narrated by Danny Glover, just those beautiful experiences, and creating, a space for them to take that trauma and to translate it into something artistic is a great expression of healing. And so, yeah, I love being a part of this podcast. So thank you for having me.
I love how you do your research. You even did it with me. You do an extensive research before you come on. So I mean, the key word in what you just said there is trauma.
Yeah.
Trauma. So, just like on my podcast with our conversation, one of two topics I wanted to bring up was, first of all, the trauma that you dealt with when your wife passed away, and what you did for yourself personally to get through that trauma, especially because it happened so suddenly and so soon just after you got married. Because I feel there's a lot. I mean, it was Diana that mentioned to me post our Tuesday podcast about a couple who just recently got married, and there was a woman who was driving. She was under the influence of alcohol. She smashed into this cart, and this was on the wedding day, and was it all that passed away, Diana, or was it just
So this is within the last, it's very recent, I think, that the court proceeding and the sentencing took place. It was a young couple, very much in love. They just were married. And then the same day of the wedding, they were in a golf cart legally driving in a certain area that was legal to drive in. It was the husband, the wife. I think it was the father. Well, I'm speaking from the perspective of the husband, the father-in-law, his wife's father. It might have been a brother-in-law. There were 4 people in the golf cart, and a young woman who had a history of alcoholism, who had been bar hopping during the day, several bars she had gone to, was driving. I think she was driving like 60 something miles per hour in a 20 plus mile per hour zone. And she smashed into the golf cart, and the wife was thrown, and she horribly, tragically, forever died. And the husband was also physically injured and continues to have physical pain, and just horrific. And the young woman was sentenced, if I remember correctly, I think it was for, in that state, like 25 years in jail. She ended up pleading guilty to it, and it was up to the judge to decide what the sentence was. And she was sentenced to this 25 years in jail. And then the woman spoke to the judge. This is, I think, within the last week, saying that basically she felt that she and her lawyers felt that the sentence was too harsh, and was asking to reduce the amount of years that she'll serve. But just, well, I'm sure you can very personally relate to this. The wife had said to her husband upon their marriage, she said to him that day, I hope that, like, I don't want this day to end. Like, this day should go on forever.
Yeah.
That's how happy she was.
So now, we can use this as an example that
Mhm.
once the husband recovers, okay, so, I'm assuming now he's still in hospital, he still needs to recover. Once he does recover, and I'm sure, I can guarantee it, that there is thousands of more people out there in the world that have gone through this sort of situation, just like you and Sondi. And he gets up, reality hits him that my newlywed wife has now passed away. This is going to now initiate suicidal thoughts.
Yeah.
So from your personal experience, what can you share with the audience on this podcast, with the world? What are the first steps to take so those suicidal thoughts, so they don't act on those suicidal thoughts after experiencing such a traumatic event?
Also, before you speak, because I was not part of the prior podcast where you and Kino spoke to each other, right? Haven't listened to it yet. Would you feel comfortable sharing your own experience about the death of your wife? What happened?
Absolutely. And being a teacher, past former teacher, you were right on it. One of the things that I always do is I repeat, to get, it's kind of like a preview, when you watch an episode of a TV show and they say, what happened last week? I do that to kind of get everyone on the same page. So, yeah, I had just gotten married. This was a long, long, long time ago, 1986, and on January 18th, and to my high school sweetheart. And the day that we were to move into our new apartment, which was 5 days later, she got in an accident and she died. And so, I was at the time, I was a manager at a waterbed store, and kind of far away from the hospital. And it's, I got this, there was a phone call, and the owner of the store answered the call. And I could just see on her face that something terribly had happened. You could almost feel it. I could feel it, the vibrations emanating from her body, that something really horrible had happened. And she didn't even really have to tell me anything. I just knew something had happened. And she looked up at me, and she said, "That's for you." And so I almost forgot this part. And I think the young lady's name was Sophie. It was so long ago. My wife's one of her closest friends and her colleague who she worked with, her co-worker, had said, "You need to get to the hospital now." She didn't have to tell me what happened. She said, "You need to get to the hospital now. Woletta's been in an accident." And so I was maybe, I don't know, 20 miles away, and so I drove as fast as I could to get there. Almost got in an accident myself. I was driving past the speed limit, passed by a cop. He didn't even stop me, and when I got to the hospital, I went in, I told them who I was, and they led me to this room. And it was this room with a gurney on it, and a sheet was over the gurney. And, no one told me to do this. I don't know where it came from, but before, they said, "We need you to identify the body." And that's when I knew it was all over, 5 days after we had gotten married. And there was a chair beside the gurney, as if they knew that people need time to kind of collect themselves. I'm sure, of course, it wasn't the first time that someone had to identify a body. And before I could identify the body, something told me to say to myself, no matter what happens, I can make it. And to this day, I have no idea how long I sat down in that chair and said that to myself, whether it was 2 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes. I have no idea. I was in this whole different world. It was like I was in a dream state. When something so traumatic like that happens to you, I understand now I understood at that point what being in shock, kind of felt like, because I was in this total dream state. But I said to myself repeatedly, no matter what happens, I will make it. And it was, I understand now it was a way of me harnessing, the energies around me, the universe, my consciousness, and almost reprogramming my consciousness, that you're about to go into a level of trauma, and this is one of the first steps in healing with that trauma. And I truly believe that me saying that, helped me get through that. When I identified her body, yes, I fell apart and just bawled like a baby, but I got through that. And I was suicidal. I mean, there's so many things that, you fight with, why me? Why did this happen to me? Why us? There's just so many questions that you fight with. And of course, the depression that you fight with. But I kept saying that to myself, no matter what happens, I will make it. And doing that and taking that step was me in a way. No, it's not in a way. It was me talking back to suicide. It was me talking back to those thoughts that told me, you know what? Let's go on. I have nothing else to live for. It was that semicolon. It was that, you know what? You can extend your life. There's more. There's a little bit more to this. That semicolon. There's a little bit more to this. And I continue to keep saying that whenever I felt down, when the suicidal thoughts came, I would say that. And I didn't even, I was in a state where people would say, Matt, if there's anything I can do, it would make me angry when people said that. Like, I didn't want to hear that. I just wanted her to come back. And so I understand that part of going through that trauma is, repeating to yourself. There's something about saying something vocal where you hear it. As a teacher later, I learned that we all have different learning styles: audible, auditory learning style, tactile, where you have to do things hand on, visual, or global, a combination of two or three or all of them. And once I learned that, I realized that when you say something out loud, and hear yourself saying it, or when you do something, it's part of training your consciousness, training your body, training your mind, training your muscles to believe in it, and believing it makes it happen. And so me saying that out loud to myself helped me get through that. And that was 1986. Last January, which is 30 something years later, I don't even know. Last January was the first time that I hadn't thought of her death on January 23rd. It was the first time that I hadn't thought of her death. So from 86 to 2023 was a day that always struck me hard, and I had thought of her death and took time out. And last year was the very first time. So, it took a long time to get through that process to heal, but not trying to dissuade anyone that it takes that long to heal. I mean, you never really forget someone that you love like that. You're not going to forget. But each day, got a little lighter. Each day got a little better. As long as I kept talking back to the suicide and saying, you know what, I'm going to make it. I'm going to get past this day. It's going to be tough. It's going to be hard, but I can get past this day, and I can find something in this and in this way to help maybe other people who have gone through this. And one of the ways that I did that was that's when I started writing music, writing poetry, using very strong symbolisms of taking the word pain and substituting the word pain for rain, and using symbolism and using metaphors, and taking that pain that I went through and translating it into a creative art form like poetry and like songs. And that whole process helped me get through that trauma. So yeah, that's what happened, Dr. Kaufman. It was tough. It was tough, but like you said, I talked back to suicide and I got through it.
Part of what you've shared, Nzandi, it reminds me too of, I had written the lyric to a song called My Crying Song for You. And it was inspired when I was reading on Facebook in a suicide loss survivors page. So I'm also a suicide loss survivor. I was reading these posts, and you can imagine how tragic, sad all of these are, let alone one suicide in the family, multiple suicides in the family, just an outpouring of grief. And I thought of this poem lyric, and it starts off how the idea that words alone can't take away the pain. But hold on to that thought, because there's more to the lyric, or the poem, that words alone can't take away the hurt and the pain, and a melody can't change reality. And then it's talking about missing the person who died, and then it leads into to share together the secret of the death. I want to secret it away and be with you. And there's an implication that the person is thinking about killing themselves to be with their lost loved one. And then it transitions into, but there's always time to choose. And the choice is to hope and live and love again. And then it leads into, in a very emotionally rendering way, because deep in my heartbroken heart, that's what I know you'd want me to do, to hope and live and love again. Right? And that song was, I spoke of it in terms of, all who love will one day grieve. And especially for suicide loss survivors, right? The will and the courage to go on after a devastating loss. And I would I resonate with you about the idea of being able to express that pain. It's real, but it's also an abstraction. It's so subjective, but also to objectify it and put it outside of ourselves and do something with it, right?
Yeah.
For ourselves and for others to see that, right? Because those emotions are also, an outside observer may not even know what's
Right.
going on unless we actually tell somebody this is what I'm thinking about. And the idea from there's stigma, I don't know, embarrassment, shame, a whole host of things that can get in the way of sharing. And art is a tremendous way of sharing personally, I feel, and also potentially, and it doesn't have to be the case that one would want to do this or not, doesn't take away from doing art, but there's also a wider public good because it goes into you're not alone.
Yeah.
Right? I'm unique and I'm also not alone.
Yeah.
And sometimes that suffering can also unite us. Okay?
Absolutely. Yeah. Because we all suffer at some point or another. Going back to when I realized in my teenage years that we all go to the bathroom, the Queen of England, Michael Jackson, Prince, Madonna. At the same point, we all suffer, no matter how rich you are or how royal you are or how lowly you are. We all have to face some type of tragedy at some point in our life, or some type of pain, whether it's a mother with a son, a brother with his sister, a teenager in high school facing bullies. We all face some type of trauma. So I agree with you, some type of conflict or tragedy. So I agree with you. We're all connected in that way.
The other day, I was looking at the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention webpage. I was also looking at NAMI because I was thinking how talking about sad, upsetting things or tragic things. I'll put this in quotation marks, but it's kind of a downer. People don't want to be sad, right?
Yeah.
Or to have that in your face, right? Somebody's sadness, even though you care about them. So I was looking at the web pages, and the initial pictures in the pages of people all smiling.
Yeah.
Right? And then later in the American Foundation of Suicide Prevention, if you scroll down lower, it's people telling perhaps their stories, and the faces look more somber. Of course, right? But I was struck by, and it's understandable in a way, why the faces are they're laughing, they're smiling, right? Or you may see pictures that people post of loved ones that died, and they're smiling in the picture. And there's such maybe you can speak on that. Just it's so incongruous, and yet in a way, it's understandable because maybe it goes back to that initial thing that you talked about, that our brain is first alert to danger and a negative thing from the amygdala and fight, flight, freeze, and we're more drawn to the negative in a way to react to it. On the other hand, if you want to maintain a connection with something, the idea of that negative, you want to get away from it, right? So maybe if you had the page on suicide of people just looking totally bereft, brokenhearted, devastating, crying on the ground, screaming, that you'll look at this page and you'll immediately click off the page because you don't want to be there. And yet, that is also the experience that the person is going through. So there's that paradox of those two things. And maybe art is also a way, and I don't mean this in a kind of a negative way, that it makes it palatable or digestible or something that you can relate to it through the art. There's some transformation that it contains the pain, but it also is held with something else. You know?
Yeah,
Maybe you can speak on that.
yeah, as humans, I think we're all wired a certain way where culturally, culture has brought us to this point where, you know, I'll start off by saying you never know what someone is truly going through. And I believe one of the reasons why is because culturally, what we have to do is, you know, when a tragedy happens, for most of us, we realize that we still have to do that thing called life. We still have to go to school. We still have to work. We still have to interact with other people. And you kind of just, in a way, you kind of brush it off and you go, is everything okay? Are you all right? And you go, yeah, I'm all right. And really, you're not, you know, especially if you're in an environment where those people don't know what that trauma was, or you're too embarrassed. Something that happened to you that is so shameful and so embarrassing that you can't really speak on it. You know, you kind of put on that happy face and you go, yeah, I'm all right. I'm fine. And then that's what's so shocking, that you find out, you know, the next day that that person, you know, took their own lives, you know, because they weren't all right. And you're like, he came to work or he came to school and he, you know, I mean, yeah, he doesn't smile as much, but he seemed okay, because we're in a society where, you know, we have to continue. We have to keep going. We have to go to this group. We have to go to swimming class. Whatever it is, we have to continue our lives. And it's so hard, you know, doing that. And I think um, once you find out that you can kind of take that pain and write it down and write that pain into a song, a love song, a heartbreak song, you know, it really, really, you know, it's kind of like venting, you know, like when you're really angry, you just want to vent, and you don't want your mate to tell you what you should do that's right or wrong. You just want your mate to hear you vent, because you just got to get it out, you know. And I think that is a process of venting, getting it out creatively through a song, through a poem, through a story, through a book, you know, through a novel, or whatever form, through art, through painting, whatever form creatively that you can, through dance, whatever form creatively that you can get that out. And you know, so I believe that we are all kind of wired that same way, where you it's not like we realize we have to go on. It's just like society forces you to continue to live on until you know, you make that choice that I can, semicolon again, I can have a, you know, extension to this part of my life, or take this and continue on, you know, because this person that passed away would want me, you know, to be successful, or would want me to live my life, or would want me to heal, or would want me, you know, to be happy again or find love again. I mean, of course, you don't think about that at the time. I don't want to find love again. My mate just passed away, or what have you. But, you know, I agree with you that, you know, this process of finding a way creatively to express ourselves is a really, really powerful tool in healing and getting through your trauma.
I think that there are also instances, in addition to those people, you know, having traumatic experiences, and there can be so many types of traumatic experiences.
Mhm.
There can also be a situation where a person perhaps has a psychiatric illness of major depression, right? Which is impacting their thinking,
Mhm.
and helpless, hopeless, either they're slowing down in terms of even their psychomotor activity, unable to work, unable to concentrate, you know, vegetative symptoms, sleep, appetite, a whole host of symptoms. And it it could be also, and there's also bipolar disorder, anxiety disorders, etc., psychotic illness. But there can also be, I think, situations where the person may be thinking, um, almost having shame, you know,
Yep.
like, why am I so, you know, there are 1 billion people that are worse off than I am.
Mhm.
Why am I thinking I want to kill myself?
Mhm.
So I think there can be an embarrassment of sharing, you know, let alone I've had this horrible traumatic experience, right? It can be almost a situation of I'm going to just make up a scenario. I'm happily married. I have a job I like. I have children I love. I have interests, whatever, right?
Mhm.
And yet I'm depressed, and I want to kill myself, and I don't understand it, and I don't want to tell anybody what I'm feeling because they're going to say to me, "What's wrong with you? You have so much to live for." And
Yeah.
yet that person too needs to be able to say without shame, something's not okay.
Yeah.
I'm not okay. I need some help. Right?
Yeah. And I think it's important that we build into or integrate into our society education, which is one of the things that you spoke about with the Hold On campaign, and educating you that when you do feel this way, there are resources at your fingertips that can help you get through this. 20 years ago, people were embarrassed to talk about they have a therapist or they're going through therapy, but now it's so common, that people aren't ashamed as much. And I think one of the reasons why it's so common is because, we have educated people that there are some resources that you can have. And I think we need to continue to have an outreach or resources for people who feel like that and let them know, hey, it's okay. We all go through something that is so heavy on our minds that it can make us feel embarrassed or shameful. And it's completely okay. And when you feel that way, here are some places you can call. Here are some places you can go. Here are some therapists you can see. Here's some funding you can get, however, so that, you can talk to other people like-minded or they're going through situational minded that are going through the same type of feelings that you are. So education is also, I think, a really powerful tool, uh, to help people get through those tough times like that.
The woman, and I apologize for not recalling her name, but the woman who started the semicolon,
Mm-hmm.
which has become a tattoo that people use in terms of that pause in your life, but go on. The story
Yep.
has not ended.
Yep.
She died by suicide.
Wow. Wow.
And sometimes a person might think, and I think that children, in a sense, can be lifesavers for their parents. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I need to go on for my children.
Mm-hmm.
But when depression is severe, even the hold of the love of the child and the child's love for you may not be enough to save you.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's so important that education that you spoke of, and also it coming from people who lived through the experience or are continuing to live through the experience,
Yeah.
right? To have that human connection in conversation and also through art.
Yeah.
Right? I don't know, Kina, if I had shared this with you, and I want to share it with you too, and Zandi. I was recently in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, for the Listening Room Film Festival. It's a Henry Turner Listening Room Film Festival. He's a jazz musician, and he has a foundation. And one of my songs was "For You, My Lovely." I'm trying to think. Actually, no, it was my crying song. My crying song was at the festival, but. Just the idea of use of the art, was so powerful,
Yeah.
in that context.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wanted to say something else about it. It slipped my mind. So when it pops back in my head again, I'm going to bring it up again. Right?
That's awesome though, that you're able to express yourself in song and people can relate to it to the point that it's award-winning songs. I love hearing that. Part of being a creator, and why I joined the Horror Writers Association Mental Health Initiative was, let me find this. Yeah. So was this fact: the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders
Mhm.
does not list insanity as a disorder. According to one article that I read, hallucinations, delusions, incoherent speech, which are traits of a severe mental disorder, are not usually characteristics of a master criminal. So now, as a writer and as, you know, someone who's in Hollywood and very connected to the film and TV industry, I'm now aware of what they call copycat. What is it called? Copycat. A copycat kind of association. And basically, what that means is when a writer creates or reinforces certain stereotypes of people with mental illnesses, it's a stereotype. They reinforce that these stereotypes are dangerous. It can cause real life discrimination and worse harm. So what happens is you're writing this book, you're writing this novel, you're writing this script or telescript, and you're 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 harnessing on a stereotype, and it's incorrect. And what happens is people see that and are exposed to that, and they copy that, and you know we have a very powerful um, tool being creative writers, songwriters, and we have to make sure we get it right. And there are some things that are just completely misconstrued, you know, in comic books and movies and TVs, that we have to get it right. And it's so important that we get it right, and we have this education, and we educate other authors, and we educate other songwriters, and we educate other creative people, so that the community as a whole, you know, doesn't copy this misconstrued stereotype that we put out there. We also have that responsibility, and that's also part of, you know, helping us help other people talk back to suicide, and making sure that when we create these stories, we portray people with mental disorders correctly.
And can you give an example of one or two examples of what you mean of those stereotypes that we might be exposed to?
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you for asking. When you watch a Friday the 13th movie, you know, or Jason, and you look at the stories and you see that he comes from a mental health, you know, he was in a mental health or an asylum, you know, Jason, and what's the other cat from Halloween? Michael Myers. Most people with mental disorders don't go around chopping people up to pieces. You know, they don't do that nonsense, you know. And so, but in our minds of being exposed to that for the last 30 years, you know, we have this concept. That's what also makes people uh, feel like they have no way out, because once people find out that they have a mental health disorder, you know, they feel like they're embarrassed about that. And because we have this concept of people with mental health disorders, that they're, you know, that they're maniacal, and that's totally wrong. It's totally wrong to portray someone like that. You know,
You're
most
more likely to be the victim of a crime than to
yes,
perpetrate the crime.
yes, and you know, sometimes I'm with someone and they'll say, "Hey, I saw this homeless person, you know, and I clutched my pocket, or I clutched my purse, or you know, I walked on the other side of the street." I'm like, 9 times out of 10, that homeless person is not going to be violent. That's a misconception. You know, they're probably going to be more of a victim. You know, and so it's the same thing with people with mental health disorders. You know, they're probably, I mean, there's an exception to every rule, of course, but 9 times out of 10, you know, they're more likely to be a victim than to be aggressively, you know, a homicidal maniac. And so, uh, like the Joker, you know, when he's in Arkham Asylum, it's incorrect, you know, because if you know the storyline of the Joker, this guy is a mastermind. You know, he doesn't have incoherent speech. You know, Silence of the Lambs portrayed it correctly. You know, that's one way they portrayed it correctly, Hannibal Lecter. And so, you know, we're as an author, it's now one of my goals to make sure that, to educate other authors how to portray it right, because if they portray it wrong, it could really affect someone's life. It could really affect someone's life. There's a really, really incredible TV series. Selena Gomez is one of the executive producers, that came out a few years ago, called 13 Reasons Why.
I was just thinking of that. Yeah.
They did it right. They did the research. They got it right. The actors came on before each episode or after the episode, and said, "Hey, if you're having some problems, here's some resources." But they really got it right, and it was a really strong portrayal of people with mental health disorders.
Although I would say that they got it right after there was feedback from the mental health community, because there was also an increase of suicidality related to the film.
Copycat.
Yeah, copycat. And it was, and I recently was reading something about it. The idea that it was giving the reason for suicide, right? All those interactions of betrayal with friends and all that stuff, the 13 reasons and her tapes, but it wasn't giving alternatives to suicide. Right. And later I had done myself, after very tragically a teenage patient of mine died by suicide. And about a year and a half after she died, I was reviewing all these arts and healing video trainings online, a course that I guess I subscribed to, but everything was going offline. It was Memorial Day, the whole thing, probably I had not been paying attention to doing it for so long, and now they were all disappearing. And so I had the day off from work, I'm watching all these videos, and one of them was writing prompt was to write a poetic progress note. And I wrote a
Write a what? Write a what?
A progress note, because this was for clinicians. And I ended up writing a poem about the last day with my patient and her mother. And I called it What Makes Us, like what makes us live or die. And it's all about the actuality of what happened, what we were saying to each other, and then what happened to her as well as to me and the family. And then later, then it was later dramatized as a video with two actresses, the youth and the clinician, ending with the then 1-800 number, because 988 hadn't happened yet. And then I renamed it, I retitled it, and I retitled it 13 Reasons Why Not.
Wow.
Right. Yeah. But you're right, that what they ended up doing is having resource pages and discussions about it, out of great concern about what people are going to be taking away from it. I also recently was watching a video. Someone had, either it was an artistic piece about suicide or talking about their own suicidality. And the comments, so many of the comments were about people, Kino and I think talked about this. Maybe you remember, Kino. Like, so many of the comments were about people wanting to kill themselves. And
which I felt was more of seeking attention.
And the question was that for real? Was that for not for real? How do you handle that online? In terms of responses and 988. And maybe you want to speak on that too. Right? Yeah. If you're opening up Pandora's box, as it were.
Yeah. So I'm one. We spoke about this a couple of weeks ago, Kino. I'm very, very keen on how powerful words are, like names. And when spoken out loud, I really believe that the universe has a certain level of vibrations, and certain things, whether in jest or whether it's a red flag, a seriousness, that are said out loud vocally, attracts certain vibrations. And so, very, very true. This only happened maybe about a month ago, a month and a half ago. One of my coworkers, I noticed that this person said a lot, "Well, if this happens, I'm going to kill myself." Well, he kept saying stuff like that. And I said, this could be a warning. Oh, no, I'm sorry. This could be a cry out. This could be a cry out of, this person is, depressed. And so I pulled him aside quietly. And I told him my story about what happened to me, when my first wife died. And I told him what I said to myself: no matter what happens, I will make it. And then I told him why I expressed that story to him. I said, I've heard you say this a few times, and whether you believe it or not, those are very powerful words that you're saying, and I don't want you to bring that kind of energy towards you. I said, so I want you to, just understand that, no matter what happens, you'll make it. And do you know what? From that day on, almost every day he would say to me, Ace, I will make it. Ace, no matter what happens, I will make it, And I said, wow. So it was kind of true. It was something that was going on inside of him, that he needed that kind of self-affirmation. And so what do you do when you hear someone say that, and they're showing the signs of it, especially if it's repeatedly? You somehow find a way, to let them know that they can get through it, either through, encouragement, your friendship. But somehow I think if you are aware enough to see the signs, that we have to find a way to inspire that person that they can continue on with their lives. And yeah, I'm not saying to be we're not clinical, we're not giving advice or anything like that. We're not we're not trained. You are, Dr. Kaufman, but most of us are not trained to give clinical advice as far as that. But we are humans, and we can always give some type of encouragement and let someone know, hey man, hey, listen, hey girl, hey sis, I'm right here for you. I got you. I can encourage you, blah, blah, blah. But not in a way, because sometimes you can say that and it could be kind of, make them, kind of rub them the wrong way. So there are ways of saying that. I'm just saying the way I did it was I told them my true story and that I can make it, and it really helped that person. And to top that off, I said to myself, when we wrapped the movie that we were working on together, I said, let me kind of share this with him in a text. And I kind of wrote it down in a text so that he could see it. And he said, Ace, I love this. I'm going to print this out and put this on my, I forget where he said, on my wall or refrigerator or TV, wherever he said he was going to put it. And that let me know that this is something that he needed, So that's another way that we can kind of open the doors to let people know who are really having a tough time that we're there for them. I think it's very important that if you can see the signs, you can help someone with that problem.
Yeah, I actually wanted you to bring up, the power of words, like you did a few weeks ago, because there's so much power in the universe, and you sharing your personal story about what you went through and what you did to actually heal using the power of words, using universal power, actually saved your life.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I needed that to be said, like on this specific podcast, the power of words.
Yeah.
In the Bible, doesn't it say in the beginning was the word?
Woo!
Yeah.
What does that say to you? That says to you that even though if you're a believer in religion or a believer of God, even God, he put into, I believe in natural laws. Some people don't understand that a lot of things, why isn't God helping me now? Because there's natural laws put in place. For example, if you walk off a cliff, guess what's going to happen? Gravity. The guy, why didn't God lift me? No, bro, that's a natural law. You walk off a cliff, you're going to fall. That's a natural law. And I believe one of the natural laws that he instituted first was like in the very beginning of Genesis. In order for things to happen, he had to verbally speak it. He could have done it just with a thought, but he instituted a natural law, a universal natural law that there is power in speech. Life and
didn't Adam, one of Adam's job was to name things, right? Yeah. Out of the chaos, there was formation. And then, in the Garden of Eden, Adam is, I think, naming what he's saying.
Yeah. I forget
Yeah.
verbatim what it says, you know, in the Bible about life and death is at the power of the tongue, something like that. But that's also
Oh, abracadabra, the word which is not in the Bible, right? I don't think it's in the Bible, but abracadabra, the
I
meaning of
don't
that word,
know.
the meaning of that magical word, what is the magic? It means I create as I speak. That's what
yes.
abracadabra means.
We spoke about that the other day, Kino, how, you know, manifesto, you know, which is one of the root words or the root etymology of the word manifest. Manifesto is broken down into mani and festo. And mani is to create, right? To create. And festo is to have a party. So manifesto is to have a party with your hands. But when you take it more literally, it means to create something with your hands through your heart. To create something with your hands through your heart. So it's a little different from attraction, you know, because people say the power of attraction, you know, you can, you know, things are attracted to you. That's a little different. Manifest means you actually have to do something. You have to create something. You have to have this party, create something creatively with your heart through your hands. And then when you learn that you align these things with voice by saying it, and there's power in saying it, power in hearing what you say, and power in doing what you say with the right intentions. Remember we talked about intentions?
Mhm.
People think intentions mean, you know, what I want to do. No, 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 no. Intentions have something to do more with there's a conflict. Great example of that, or a great metaphor of that is a guitar. So a guitar, the sound won't sound right until you tune the strings. And to tune the strings, there's a level of tension. Once you have the level of tension correct and you play this, you know, play the guitar, then you have a beautiful harmony, beautiful melody. So there has to be a level of conflict. So in order for you to manifest something, you have to align what you give, what you receive with what you do. And what you do has to come from something that you emotionally feel. That's why it's very, very important that when you feel something, you know, and you have intentions, that you have to have a level of joy with it. You bring that emotion of joy with your intentions and that conflict, understanding that there's some type of conflict that has to happen. It can't be easy. There's some type of conflict, the tension. Once you align those three things together, you can manifest. You can create a party with your hands. You can manifest something of your own doing. And so part of that whole thing is the power of words, the power of names, the power of speaking abracadabra. Make something happen with my words. I tied it all in. See how I did that?
Oh, beautifully said. Wow. It
Yeah. I love
reminded
how you
me of
use the guitar as an
The Red
example,
Sea
you know?
parting, right?
Yeah. The guitar is a
To
good
the promised
example because
land.
your life, like in music, you don't want to create dissonance, with your sounds. It
Yeah.
needs to be in tune. So the same applies with life,
Yeah.
like even with emotional intelligence, you don't want to create dissonance. It just needs to be in tune
Right.
all the time between you and the universe. I'll share another example of the power of words, something that I experienced myself this week. Like I messed up on something, and this is related to, work, but I'm very good at taking accountability. And that's something not many can do, I never used to be that person to take accountability. Like if I messed up on something or I did something wrong, it's easier for people these days to push the blame when they say, look, you know what, I messed up. I take accountability. So for the last 24 hours, no, a bit more than that, it was actually like eating me up inside. And this morning I went into prayer and I said out loud, using the power of words, Kino, I forgive you. You messed
Mm,
up. I'm taking accountability for that.
mm,
We're going to do better next time.
mm.
And, that brought so much, comfort to my life, you know, on that. So the
Yeah.
power of words, extremely important, as you
But
said
you did
to
something else
yourself,
that was you did
I'll
something
make
else
it.
that was you did something else that was very important too. Um, that is really, really uh instrumental in this conversation is you forgave yourself. And a lot of times when we talk back to suicide, we have to realize, it's not, it's okay to say, hey, I forgive myself. It's okay to say, hey, I messed up, but
Mm.
I can speak on it. I can forgive myself. And part of forgiving yourself is part of healing and moving forward, because forgiving yourself is also part of creating a harmony, you know, with the way life is. Because once you realize that we all make mistakes, sometimes, we may make a mistake tomorrow, dumb mistakes, stupid mistakes, and we all are, privy to that. And once you realize that, you can have instantaneous forgiveness for someone who makes a dumb mistake to you. Because again, we never know what someone is going through. And when someone reacts to you or treats you in a way that's like, what the heck? If you have instantaneous forgiveness for that person, right?
Yeah.
Your spirit is still beautiful. Your spirit is still strong. You're still positive, and yet you can still treat that person who's being so negative, because you don't know what they're going through. Who's being so negative? You can treat that person with the love, because you forgave them instantly. Instantly, as soon as they did the mistake, you forgave them instantly, because you realize you can make that same mistake too. And forgiveness is a powerful tool
Human.
also in moving forward and and healing. Forgiveness, forgiving
Yeah.
yourself, forgiving someone else. Just forgiveness, let it go. Again, look at that trauma, write it down, ball it up,
Yeah,
let it go.
yeah. I'm thinking too now, and this is true always, but also now with Christmas coming and thinking of Jesus, that didn't he say on the cross, forgive them, Lord, right? For they do not know what they do, right? Those are powerful words.
Yeah.
I also want to
Yeah.
say, in my mind popped back what I wanted to say to you about being in Louisiana. So I was at that film festival, and it was walking distance from the hotel to the Louisiana Art Museum. So I went to the art museum. And in the art museum, in addition to a special display of impressionistic art, they had print artists, a display of prints. So there was Goya, and I can't remember. There was one other, which I don't remember, but there was Albrecht Dürer from the 1500s, and his print making, which is so phenomenal, what he did. And on the wall, one of the walls, it had a quote for him, and he talked about something like when speech fails, there is art. So he talked about that, connecting those two concepts. But one of his prints that was on display and also was on the cover of the LA art, not LA, LA, Louisiana art, it was the museum little brochure for the display that they had on.
Yeah.
It said Art Talk. That was the title of their brochure. And it had the print that Albrecht Dürer did, I think it was like 1524, because I looked it up, called Melancholia.
Mm.
And I suggest you take a look at this, and everybody who's listening takes a look at this, because it's apparently a print, or the print ever, that has had the most research done about this print to try to understand all the symbolism in the print. And if you look at it, it has a very heavy figured angel in the front, who it's hard to tell if it's male or female. Its head is down and it looks despondent.
Mm-hmm.
And next to it is another tinier, much tinier angel that has I forget the name for it, but there's a certain name for that angel. And some people may remember those really cute looking little angels looking up at the
Like
sky.
a cherub,
Those
you
are,
mean like a
yeah, the
cherub?
cherub-like ones. But this one is cherub, but it's a very depressed cherub, which is next to it. And there's a rainbow. There's in the background, there's a ladder. There's all figures of geometry. There are all implements related to geometry in it. There's a magic square in the backdrop that also has the year that this was done. And there is the word melancholia 1, because apparently there was thought to be 3 different types of melancholia. Back then, one of them had to do with the melancholia that artists have. And the word melancholia, which is beneath the rainbow, is being held by a bat. So there's, in some of the articles that I was reading, about this, one interpretation was that it could have been a self-portrait of Albrecht Dürer, who also had experienced depression in his life, or depression in quotation marks, and it was talking about having almost divine inspiration, or having those creative ideas, and at the very same time not being able to manifest them, the conflict between those two. But there's also like an octahedron shape in the picture. It's just fascinating.
Wow, I gotta look it up.
Yeah, look that up, and also to in a way, what a gift from Albrecht Dürer, that from the 1500s to now going on 2025, that he shared an experience with us, and also metaphorically and symbolically elements for us to think about and relate to, and to have a conversation about mental health.
Yeah. Wow, that's powerful. I definitely have to look that up.
Yeah.
Ace, okay, so part 2, or the second question, I wanted to bring up on this show that we spoke about, is to just explain to listeners out there about what you mentioned about life moving in waves.
Oh,
we can just briefly, quickly touch on that, because that was fascinating, and also another trigger to bring you on this podcast.
So I am in the era of my life now where I have, through research, through exposure to different philosophers and modern philosophy and podcasts, a lot of listening and integrating that with something that has been building up inside of me, with some of the stories that, like the book that won the Bram Stoker, my Warrior Mosaic novel, that won that made me the first Black to win in the category of a novel, and my Lipstick Asylum, those characters. I've been building up this world, and then I got exposed to this reality that made me understand life a little bit from a different perspective. And it was that everything pretty much happens in waves. Life is a wave. And, every generation probably feels like, oh my gosh, this is a bad time for us. Every generation probably feels like that. And we have historical data where they had a bad time, from the Holocaust to apartheid in South Africa, to there's just so many different groups of people who have had a tough time. Slavery to, there's just so many different areas where they had genocide or something really, really bad, wars, and I realized through my listening to these different podcasts and my readings and research that it was a wave that, as bad as it got at the low point, we always got through it. And it made me realize that is what all humans go through in their lives historically, is a wave. And that is also part of, once you understand that every single person in this world that breathes life goes through some sort of tragedy, except for maybe if they were, born and passed away, as soon as they were born. That every single person goes through some sort of tragedy. Once you realize that, you also realize that the people that went through some type of tragedy, there was a wave in their life. Not to say that your tragedy, will not to say anything about, you shouldn't go through that tragedy, but to also say that there's hope, that because it's a wave, that even though you're in this downtime, it's human, it's just part of life. You will get an uptime. You will get to the top. You will get to the top of that crest. It's just part of life. And when you're going through these types of feelings of ending your life, if you just understand that everyone goes through tragedies and you'll get through it, if you understand that's just a part of life, it really helps you to hold on. It helps you understand, okay, I will get through this. I will get better. And so one of the other things that I was explaining about that was that, it's kind of like the metaphor of coal. Coal can create diamonds. You got to go through this process of hardening, and then out of that comes diamonds. I remember when I first started teaching, and as an African American, I was exposed to different cultures, and we would go to different people's homes, I don't know, housewarming parties or whatever, Christmas parties or what have you. And they were teachers. And I'm like, how did they get this incredible, beautiful home? What the heck? How is this? Wow. It didn't dawn on me until later that, it was inherited. They inherited it. A lot of cultures, they pass down their homes to their children. And there's nothing in my life that I can really see that's worse, besides maybe my first wife passing, than the death of your mother. I didn't understand what that felt like. My father had passed away first. It was not the same. It was not the same as to when my mother died of COVID in 2020. It wasn't the same. And as bad as that was, my mother, through all our hard work, through all of, the bills she paid, she worked as a nurse, she took 3 buses, she worked those long hours as a nurse. She passed the house down to me. And so now my grandmother did the same thing. And so here I am and my grandmother was the one who raised me when I was a child. Here are some of the two of the worst things that I went through in my life: losing my grandmother, who was like my mother because she raised me, and losing my mom, who was my mom. I now have 2 homes, and by having these 2 homes that are all paid for, my life, and I'm selling now. I was forced because, went to the siblings. So out of the 3 of us, one of the parties sued me to sell it. I was going to keep the house in New York, and that's why I'm selling the house in New York. Because I was kind of forced to sell it because they are entitled to their inheritance. I get it, but still, it is allowing me in a whole new stage of my life, because selling this house, I'm going to buy another house right next to the house I have in Florida, and the passive income that's going to come from that house and just everything else that's coming from the house is totally putting me in a whole different lifestyle, just like that, from selling a house in New York. So out of this most terrifying, most terrible moment in my entire life of losing my mother, that down part is now beginning to come to an up part. Every single person goes through this. And if you realize that every single person goes through the ups and downs of life, the waves of life, you realize that you're going to get through it. And guess what? Once you get to the good part, guess what? You're going to go down again. It's just part of life. You're going to go down again. It's a wave. It's part of life. And when you realize that, okay, this is one of these times I'm going through, this is one of these tough times, but I'll get through it. When you understand that everyone goes through that and you can get through it, you do get through it. And so, yeah, that's the whole wave thought correlation and how it can apply to your own life and how you can get through and talk back to suicide.
So to all the listeners, whatever you may be going through right now, that is creating suicidal thoughts, it's a wave. That's the point of the soil. Right now, you maybe think you're going down and it's getting deeper and deeper and deeper, but sooner or later, it will start.
It's part of life. It's just the way that life was
Part of
made.
life.
Yeah.
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 Will
And
start.
Sanjay,
Thank
as an educator and as an African American man, what would you say to African American youth? Because they're of all groups, in terms of looking at recent statistics,
Mhm.
the rate of suicide has been going up for African American youth. What would you say to society in terms of what may be contributing to that? What would you say to families or to individual youth to help them through that?
I can only speak from the from the account of being a black male in America, and and I'm an educated African American male, but at the same time, like I said before, I'm a walking oxymoron. I grew up in New York. I had a lot of street friends. As a musician, I came from a lot of the hip hop community, which is really connected to the streets and all of the dangers of the streets. And then I was connected to thespians. I was connected to educators. On my block was the provost of a university. Right down the street was our principal. So I had a combination of both these worlds. My grandmother taught school for 40 years. And with all of that's inside of me, nothing is like, I'm 58 right now. So somewhere between the ages of 14 to now, every single day, just about, maybe 4 days a week, when I go out, I feel some level of prejudice. So what happens to a person experiencing that every day, 365 days a year for 20 years? There's a buildup of anxiety. There's a buildup of angst. There's a buildup of resentment. So, and what I mean by some type of prejudice, I mean like every time you go in the store, someone's watching you. Like you feel it, you see it. I'm jogging in the streets of Pasadena and the door locks. Click. As I'm jogging by, I'm walking in a suit and the door locks. Click. And you see it enough times every single day that it does something to your whole, it does something to you. It creates a resentment. And the way resentment works is, it builds up into you until it explodes. So if you have no output for it or no way to heal or get through it, it just explodes. And so here you have a culture that is a vicious cycle of, going through this every single day, and people don't understand why the stresses and the criminalities occur in these type of environments, and why there's a fear of cops and all this kind. Every single time a cop comes behind me, till this day, I'm watching. There's a certain if I had like a heart pacer monitor, I'm not even doing anything. Everything's correct. My license, everything is good, but still, I bet my heart rate goes up a little bit every single time. Yesterday, a cop, it's every single time a cop comes behind me. I haven't done nothing wrong. I haven't done anything, a long time. It still happens. Why is that? And so it's because, as an African American living in America, I can't speak for other countries, but as an African American living in America, every single day for 20 years, 30 years in a row, or every single week at least, I'm faced with some type of prejudicism or some type of some type of feeling of that creates an anger inside of me. So when you have all of that, especially in today's youth, let's not even talk about how our music culturally reinforces that's a whole different conversation. How our music, and when I say music, our music, I'm talking about hip hop music, and now today R&B music reinforces that. How those things reinforces that type of stereotype, and how it reinforces that type of vicious cycle of anger and just the things that aren't really the best part of our culture, and you combine that with the pressures that a teenager may go through, they feel like they have no way out, or they don't even care about having a way out. And they put themselves in an environment or put themselves in a situation where, suicide is an option, is a welcome option, because everything else is against them. I believe those are the root, all the things I just said is the root. And I still go through it as an educator, as a person who loves spirituality, as a person who, has, I try to stay on the right side of morality. I still go through those things every day, and I have to, I have to be aware of it so that I can control it. And I think one of the ways that, and I did this as a teacher because I taught in a lot of at-risk schools with African Americans. I think one of the ways that we help our culture, African American culture, get past that, go through from the down wave to the higher part of the crest of the wave, is that we teach them how to deal with situations with a thoughtful understanding of how our environment is. And when you have a thoughtful understanding of that and how to deal with that, let me give an example because it's hard to explain it. So I would say to my kids, my sons as well, I used to teach them this, and to the kids I taught in school. I said, here's a scenario. And this was based on a real life scenario that I went through when I got stopped by cops and friends in the car. I said, here's a scenario. I'm talking to the guys now. I said, look, you're trying to talk to this girl, this pretty girl in the school, and you finally get her number, and you finally call her, and she kind of lets you know that she likes you, and you're waiting on her to call you. She's gonna call you. You've been waiting all day for her to call you. And man, this is one of the hottest chicks in the school, one of the hottest girls in the school. Everyone loves her. Everyone thinks she's cool. She's a cheerleader, whatever it is, And she finally says she likes you, and you're waiting on her to call you so y'all can go hang out, go to Pop's diner and hang out or whatever it is. And you're waiting all day for that phone to ring. And, so you got it on vibrate. You got, you got it ready, as soon as it rings, hey, what's going on? How you doing? You're waiting on that call, right? And you're out with your friends, and you're out with your friends, and, when you're out with your friends, you're hanging with people who accept you, who you're cool with, and some of your friends might not be cool as far as obeying the law, but they're cool with you. They, you belong together. Y'all gel together. Y'all been through things together. You grew up together, whatever it is. And this guy, for whatever reason, maybe he's driving wrong, maybe his license isn't right, maybe the tag isn't right, whatever it is, you guys get pulled over by the cops. So now you get pulled over by the cops. Now, remember, in this type of environment, and we gotta realize what they went through. Whatever cops that pull you over, they're used to criminality because that's what they see all day long. So their awareness of criminality and their response to it is different. Because this is what they deal with hooligans all the time. They deal with street life all the time. And most of the street life they deal with is usually on a negative front. The people are talking to them disrespectful. They're saying things and doing things that are illegal. And so this is the type of environment that they're used to. And so because they're used to this, their level of safety is heightened. So any wrong move makes them move in a way, right? Because this is what they go through all the time, all day. So they have a prejudice against, these situations. They're prejudiced against these situations because most of the situations, are disrespectful to them or violent. So because of that, they're heightened. So now they pull you guys over. They have you come out the car, right? Now, as soon as they pull you over, have you come out the car, and they're checking you guys out to make sure everything is on up and up, no one has weapons or whatever. The phone rings in your pocket. The call you've been waiting on all day long, What's your instinct? Your instinct is to grab that phone quick as you can. Your hand moves to your pocket quick as you can because you want to, the homegirl just called me. Oh man, she called me. Oh my God. As soon as you do that, something bad happens. You're the nicest kid out of the group. You just wanted to get the phone call from the girl you've been waiting on all day. You finally hit that great girl. But when your hand moves really quickly, that alerts the cop that something's going on wrong. And he responds because this is what he's used to all day long. And the nicest kid out of the whole group gets shot. The nicest kid out of the whole group gets shot. Why? Because he's trying to answer the phone. So me planting the seed of this can happen, I say, once this happens, you start saying to yourself, my conversation is going to be very calm to this police officer. I'm going to stay very polite. I'm not going to say anything like, man, what'd you stop us for? Because, you're so used to being looked at in the store everywhere you go. So the angst and anger comes out. So it's so automatic for you. But no, you're going to overcome this. You're going to be calm. Because look, check it. If right now today, if I go in the store and some cop pulls me aside, so let me see your bag. I'm like, here you go. You can look at my bag. I'm not gonna get angry because I didn't do anything wrong. I didn't do anything wrong. You can look at my bag. But it took years of me getting that psychology of understanding that I didn't do anything wrong. Look, you find a thing? All right, cool, man. Thanks. And I leave. I stay calm. I stay respectful. I cooperate. No problem. I don't move quickly. I don't move fast. I don't do anything with my hands. I stay calm. And when you teach your youth and you teach your kids that they have to have, you plant that seed that they have to have this calmness, you're not going to answer your phone if your phone going to ring. Because right now you're in front of this person. You're not going to speak loud or speak out of turn. You're not going to be disrespectful. So a lot of my friends might say when we get in these conversations, my African-American friends, they shouldn't have been doing that in the first place. They shouldn't have done that in the first place. You're absolutely right. But what environment are we living in? We're living in an environment where these people, these cops who live in a vicious environment has this prejudice against, the street life already. So that's what we're dealing with. So if you're dealing with that already, whether they're right or wrong, whether they're working in the law or beyond the law, that doesn't matter. What matters is my child comes home safe. So if my child comes home safe, I need to teach my child that in these situations, I need to be patient. I need to be calm. I need to be respectful. I don't make any fast moves. I'm being very cooperative. And guess what? I go home. Great example of that kid that went and shot people up in the school, in the church, and the cops took him to get some Burger King. Why? Because if you watch the videos, when they went to pick him up, he was calm. He was cool. He wasn't disrespectful. He didn't speak out of his mouth. He didn't say anything, insult anyone. He was calm. And they took him to get a daggone burger. And this guy killed 9 people in the church or whatever it was. So it lets me know the psychology of policemen are people too. And you have to understand the type of environment they deal with, and you understand the type of environment they deal with. You understand that people too. No one, I don't care what level, what height of hierarchy of power you are, no one likes to be insulted. No one likes to be disrespected. And I feel like if you're wearing a badge or you're in a position of superiority, you're in a position of power rather, you kind of demand that respect. And when you're not respected, as a human, you react a certain way. Because we weren't taught in school how to react in situations of duress. We're just not taught that. We're not taught how to act in situations of tragedy and trauma. We're just not taught that. If we were taught how to act in situations of tragedy and trauma, how to act in situations of duress, I think our society as a whole would be better. So I kind of answered your question trifold in a lot of different ways, but that's what my belief is, and that's what I feel like part of our solution is, especially in the African American culture, is to train our kids while they're young how to deal with these situations and to plant the seeds before they even happen, so that when it does happen, they know how to respond appropriately, and they come home. They come home to us.
Yeah, makes sense.
I have a cup that I drink my coffee from every morning. And the cup has a little bit of a floral design, but it has the word courage on the cup. And the other day, after drinking from this coffee cup for years and years, I saw that the word courage has the word rage in it. And as a writer and as a thoughtful person, what do you think of, so because I like to think that like all the answers are there. It's all in the language, or it's all in the words. If only we knew what they meant or their word origin. right?
So
So what do you make of that? That the word courage is the word rage.
I love that. So and I need to make sure I say my words right, because sometimes, you know, people can take a little clip of something you say, and that clip totally misconstrues, you know, takes it out of context. So, you know, again, through my research, philosophies, etc., I realize um that there's a trifecta of life. And I used the wrong word. I used the word extreme, you know, good, evil, balance. You know, extreme might be the wrong word. The right word might be opposites. Like in our culture,
Dialectical, yeah.
yeah, in our culture, we've taken the word negative to mean bad. But if you take the word negative to mean opposite, like positive, like a battery, positive, negative, right? These are the extremes, and then the balance in between. When you realize that all three are necessary, not evil, good, middle. I don't want to use that as a metaphor, but negative, positive, the middle, right? When all three are instrumental for life to exist, when you realize that, you can put into the concept of how rage, right, which is a powerful word. We all know what rage means. Courage, which is a powerful word. We know what courage means. So think of this scenario, and I used this example before with Kino. You know, so say for example, someone comes into your home. If you're a man, you know, or a woman, you know, someone comes into your home and they're going to endanger your children. They're going to endanger, like, there's no question about it. They broke into your home. They're going to endanger your children. There is no turn the other cheek. There is no let's be nice. There's get this guy. We got to put this guy down, whatever, because he's not going to harm my children. He's not going to harm my wife, right? So there's this level of understanding that there are certain times in our life where we have to use that rage in order to show courage, right? There's certain times where we have to use that. And it's not that we live in that negative part of the polar system, polarization. We don't live in that negative all the time, because that's the extreme. We don't live in the super positive all the time. That's the extreme. People who are too goody can turn a lot of people off, because it feels like they're fake. Like, oh, you don't have any problems? We all have problems. I can't pay my bills this week. I can't do this week. My youngest boy just cursed me out in front of my friend, and I don't know how to deal with that. You know, you don't have any problems, so that's too goody, right? So you don't live in the goody polar, the plus polar. You don't live in the negative polar. You live kind of in a balance, understanding that you need resources from the positive, resources from the negative in order to live in the balance. You need to pull from some of them, from either one of them, at times in your life, right? You need that. So that person comes in my house to harm my children, I'm taking them out. Point blank, taking them out. You know, he's not going to rape my wife or harm my wife. He's not going to, you know, abuse my children or kill my children. I got to take him out. So that taking him out is not goody guy. It's the pulling from the negative. So I believe that once we understand that that life exists with the negative and the positive, right? Once we live that life, once we understand that life exists with those two polars, right? I don't want to use the word extreme, but those two polar ends, opposites, and that we stay in the balance, understanding that the balance is the middle ground and is the bridge, right? So what is a bridge? A bridge connects the two, so they're connected. The bridge connects the two, and we understand that we can go across that bridge to either side, but always understand that we are the bridge, right? That we can live life and understand that, as a horror writer, I write stories all the time about the concepts of vampires versus animals and beasts, and an animal, a lion that's killing a possum, that's not evil, that's survival. That's survival. He's going on an instinct. That's not evil. That's survival. When a wasp, stings you, that's not evil. And matter of fact, I believe the wasps that sting you are the females, and they go on to pass away. You know, the worker bees are doing actually the females are worker bees too. I can't remember, but anyway, I can't remember. But anyway, it's not evil, you know. So I think what had happened was, by the way, that Jamie Foxx, if you haven't seen the Jamie Foxx, what had happened was on Netflix. It's very, very powerful. He tells what happened, you know, to his, you know, what happened to him during that dark time in his life. But anyway, you know, you realize that when you got to pull from those two sources in order to live, and it's not really being evil. It's not really being good. It's understanding that we all have both sides of all sides of the polarity, and we can all, you know, bridge the two sides in order to go forward in life to live. There are times when you have to pull from that, and there are times when you have to pull from the positive, but you want to try to stay in the middle ground in order to live and move forward. And that's where the rage from courage comes from. You have to pull from that sort of rage sometimes, that you know, that powerful resource of what it takes to be rage. Pull from that, take the best assets of that, right, in order to build something beautiful, to have courage. Yeah, that's my own concept of courage and how rage is encouraged. I never heard you say that before. Never, you know, this, you know, just my instinct of responding that way.
Thank you.
I agree. Yeah, I agree. You know, it's like courage, creating rage. You know, that's what courage is. At the end of the day, if you have courage in you to stand up to someone, you are creating some form of rage.
Yeah.
That's having courage.
Yeah.
You know,
it's funny as so when my third wife and I got called to the office for my son, he got in a fight. He was young. I think he was in 5th grade or something at the time. You know, when the principal walked out to do something for a minute, you know, after telling us what had happened, you know, I was like, good for you. Yeah, I was like happy, you know. And, you know, my third wife, she was like, my ex-wife, she was like, kind of like, what? And so what, some boy had taken his chips from him, you know, and just took him and abused him. And he punched the guy, you know. And so, you know, we don't encourage fighting in school. But at the same time, as a father, you realize as a male, well, not all males may realize this, but you realize as a male, part of our bonding process is respect. And, you know, when a bully comes to you and bullies you, if you have the courage to fight back, punch him in the mouth, you know, the way TV kind of portrays is the bully keeps coming, but in real life, a lot of times you punch that bully in the lip, he knows that he respects you. He respects you now. He'd actually be cool with you now because you showed that sort of courage to him. And he knows if I keep bothering this kid, you know, I'm going to keep getting punched in the face or keep punching the nose, punching the eye. That's too much of a problem. I'll leave him alone. You know, it's something happens in that process. I can't speak about the young ladies. I didn't have daughters. I don't know how that works, you know, but I can speak about the boys. And I went through that. Something happens when you fight back, when you have the courage enough to fight back against an injustice towards you as a child, you know, on the school grounds, when a bully keeps bullying, taking your school money or taking your food from you. And so there's kind of like, as a parent, there's like this teacher moment where you have to teach a kid that violence isn't the way to respond. But to a bully who keeps bullying you, talking with, hey, so, you know, do you want my lunch money today? Here's my lunch. No, he's going to keep coming and getting your lunch money. So there's a certain way that you have to respond. There's that courage, responding with that rage, leave me alone. You know, there's that courage and it takes courage to do that. You know, it takes courage to do that. That helps you kind of move past, you know, and bond with the person who has been subjecting you with, making you feel bad, dealing with that person, standing up to that person, standing up to your boss. When it's in, I think when it's in a workplace situation, you do it with, of course, professionalism and respect, but you still stand up to that person, you know.
What you're reminding me too is, in a way, I'm thinking of cyberbullying. because cyberbullying also can be a risk factor for suicide.
Mm.
And there have been real living teenagers or young adults who something happened in school, they were humiliated. There may have been, there was recently I read of this, a young woman, a girl, teenager in high school. She was attacked in the hallway by two other females and was hit and was on the ground being beaten. And it was being recorded by other high school students who posted it. And the young girl who was being hit, she died by suicide a day later.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking that if that, instead of that feeling of shame and humiliation and exposure and everybody's making fun of me, and she had said to her father, I don't want to be the girl that everybody's watching being beaten on the video. She had said that to him, and then sometime thereafter she killed herself. That if that can be turned to outrage, outrage of somebody beating me, people filming me, people posting, that could be a turning point of staying alive,
Yeah.
rather than all that being
Yes, they- they-
internalized
Yeah.
and I can't stand being alive. Like standing up for yourself versus I can't stand being alive.
I see now. That's where it's out of my wheelhouse. That was a perfect example of something that's completely out of my wheelhouse. And 13 Reasons Why starts out with that whole, everyone saw the video, or she was exposed as being a slut, et cetera, et cetera. It's been out years now. I don't want to spoil it, but it's been out years. And so that humiliation, I don't know how to deal with that. That's where I would leave that into that's out of my wheelhouse. How would a female deal with that kind of humiliation? Bullying, I don't really know. I haven't had the exposure or the thought process to deal with that type of conflict where everyone, is ganging up on you. And cyberbullying, when you're on the internet, you're on TikTok and everyone or whatever it is that you're on, and everyone or DMs you and bullies you. I don't know what the solution is for that. That's out of my wheelhouse. That's where I would leave it into your
The thing
hands.
is, I did a blog about this in 2021, and the local media actually put it out, in the paper. And this is where accountability needs to come in again. And I hope we can do part of our reels. Like, I want to make this clear on where the accountability actually lies. Okay. And it lies with parents and with teachers and the whole educational system, because they are not moderating this. You go into an average household today, mother is on the phone, father is on the phone, kids are on the phone. It's not a healthy environment. So when it comes to this subject, parents, educators, they need to take accountability. That is where I am personally pushing the blame.
Okay.
Onto them. There needs to be moderation. There needs to be regulations. You cannot I understand that technology is needed from an educational point of view. Now we can self-educate ourselves. It's like going back to courage. When we were growing up in school and in college, physical violence was the only means. These days, if you educate yourself up here, that's your weapon now. No more, you're first. So I understand technology is helping the educational sector, or we hope it is. Not everybody has, such luxuries and opportunities. But there needs to be, limits. We cannot be allowing our kids, first of all, to be taking, a smartphone to school. Why are we allowing that to happen? Why are parents even allowing that to happen? It shouldn't be allowed. It should be stopped. We shouldn't have kids, during lunch breaks being on their phones. Why did that kid have that phone in the first place to take that recording, of whoever getting bullied?
Yeah.
There are some
So
schools
parents,
now that are enforcing not having the cell phone at the
yeah,
school. And in this
Yeah.
good,
particular case that I
good.
was mentioning, and I don't like using the word case because that's sort of a terrible word, this real life event of a young girl killing herself,
Mm.
the family is suing the school because there was of course, schools have anti-bullying policies in place, and there was evidence of bullying going on in the school, and what action did they or did they not take.
Mhm.
So these are real events from a structural point of view.
Yeah.
The use of the cell
Yeah,
phone, the use of the responsibility of the school, what parents are doing or not doing, and then there's the individual who's caught in this. Like, I can think of another situation of two young girls, and there was a documentary made about these two girls. Yeah, two different maybe states, two different schools that they were going to in separate states. Each of them, there was some sort of sexual assault experience that each of them had experienced. And then there was cyberbullying related to what happened.
Mm.
And in the documentary, one of the girls had died by suicide related to this. And then the other girl and her mother or parent became an advocate around suicide prevention and bullying and sexual assault. That girl later died by suicide after the documentary was over. And also the mother of that girl eventually died by suicide.
So what's the
So
solution?
that ripple effect.
How do we fight back? Okay, so first of all, Kino, like the Los Angeles school district has banned phones. I don't know if that means that during lunch they can't have their phones, but I know that, now, I think starting this year or maybe next year, I think it started this year, they're not allowed to have their phones. As a teacher, I don't even know what I would have went through if my kids had phones. I actually finished my teaching career right when phones got popular in 2006. And so I don't, so cyberbullying, well, first let me say this, Kino, I don't think we're going to, I think the more technology, and I write in my novels and horror novels, science fiction novels, technology is a big part of the future. So I don't think we're going away from having phones. I think we're going more towards technology be even more integrated. Like in my books, in all of my books, you have the neural net instead of the internet, the neural net, and everyone can connect through their brain, to online, and you can't control that. I have some systems in place where a teacher can get an alert when a student taps into the neural net, and she can warn that student, of detention and whatnot.
Yeah, I saw that in China as well. Look, no, I am all for technology. I am all for technology. I am embracing it. I'm embracing artificial intelligence, all of it.
Yeah,
But when it comes to, kids, we were more mentally, psychologically strong growing up. The generation of today isn't, because they've been brought up in a different era.
yeah,
Okay. We used to go out and play with our friends on the road or hang out on the streets. Kids are no longer doing that. It's school, home, it's on the phone, it's Netflix, whatever.
yeah.
That's the issue.
Computer,
You
yeah,
know, if, you know, for me, I just feel like with the school system, kids shouldn't be allowed to take in a phone at all, not even be allowed to like be on it, even during lunch break. And if
yeah.
technology needs to be used for educational purposes, that needs to come from the school itself.
Yeah, but so Dr. Kaufman brought up something really, really important. Not only did it happen to the students, but it happens to the student's mother. How do we address people that are exposed to cyber crimes, to cyberbullying, to how do we approach, how do we fix that? There has to be some way that we find a place, a safe place that they can go to. Like, what's the solution?
So that's why creating Team Human, which we've invited you on, has actually been created
Creating what?
to touch on creating Team Human.
Oh, Team Human.
Remember, I
Yeah.
sent you the invite about it, but you couldn't make it on the first episode
Oh,
because
right.
it was during the week. And then I said, okay, we're going to accommodate you on the second one in January. So that is why now we have all come together, including Dan, to create Team Human to actually address, what we call these worms, but not only address it, actually implement plans to
Yeah.
fix it and do something about it.
Yeah.
So topics like these, this is something now we can bring up, in the next episode, and what can we do, globally to fix it, because it is out of control. In South Africa alone, it's out of control.
Mm.
And the thing is, with the article I wrote, what I go on to say is that, when someone was bullied when I was in school, the next day it was like forgotten, we moved on,
Oh,
whatever.
that's
It was a
lucky. You're
whatever
lucky.
case. You know what I'm saying? Okay, not all cases. I'm not saying all cases, but people will be like, okay, whatever, this happened to Kino yesterday. Yeah, we're gonna move on today, Now these days, unfortunately, something happens, it goes online, it's unstoppable. Yeah, you can go on, raise a dispute with Facebook, so on, to get this removed, but it's too late by the time that actually happens.
Yeah.
I
You
had
know,
a patient of mine. I'm retired now as a child psychiatrist since 2020, the end of June 2023. But one of my patients, a high school student, had experienced cyberbullying and also direct bullying in the school that she was attending.
Mhm.
And she had ended up, based on her certain circumstances, leaving the school and doing homeschooling for her education. She was participated in therapy. And related again to her particular circumstance, she had developed an anxiety disorder as well as a depression. She was on medication for a while, but eventually, after perhaps it was about 2 years or so, the medication was successfully lowered, down. And she had a very, very supportive mother in the situation. And so she was saved in a sense, and also there had to be a growth of internal strength in her, because as you said, that cyberbullying is still existing. That content is still existing online. So it was also a question and a realization that she needs to stop looking at it, and she needs to she has to distract her mind from going to that thought about what's online and start filling her mind and her life experiences with positive things. And also, I think, developing an attitude of those people are all messed up, right? And I am separating myself from that, and I'm living my own life.
So you just put into play a thought process that I had never had before. And it really it bothers me that you said the daughter and the mother took their own lives, right?
Yeah, from this documentary that I had seen.
So now, I don't have the background educationally, but I have the awareness to say this. So one part of it is to deal with the victims. But what if, like, there seems to be, and as a writer, we look at tropes. There seems to be a certain trope in the bullies, people that bully other people. And usually that trope is, as a writer, this is like, stereotypes. We take a trope, like you don't want to write about a football player that doesn't do football player things, or a construction worker that doesn't do construction things, or a lawyer that doesn't do lawyer. You have certain characteristics that these people have, so that when people read these characters, it fits. Teacher, it fits. Dancer, it fits. So you have to have these stereotypes, but they're tropes put in play. So the tropes of a bully usually are, and we're talking about youthful bullies, usually come from a home where they're abused themselves.
Yeah.
These are the tropes. I'm not,
Yeah.
maybe partially reality, but I can't speak on reality because I'm not a clinician. But the tropes in writing, the bullies come, the father, beats them up, or the mother is very hard on them and doesn't give them that the type of love that they need, a nurturing love. Whatever it is, there's some type of problem that the bullies are going through themselves, right? Again, going back to that phrase where I say you never know what people are going through. So what if part of the solution, it has to come through, I think, maybe education and home life, but people, the reason why, as me, as a father, when my sons were growing up, I was working a lot. My wife was working a lot. I was working a lot. I come home, when I did get home late, because at that time when I was raising my kids, I was director of education for the Civil Learning Center. So long hours. I get home, I'm tired, but I still work a little bit with them on their homework. And then I got to go back to sleep pretty much in a few hours, to get up early in the morning. So, there's a lot of time that they're home by themselves. So of course they'll do their homework, and then they watch TV, and then they get on the internet. So they get exposed to cyberbullying. So it's almost kind of like you can't prevent them from being exposed, because you got to work, you got to pay the bills, So I think maybe part of it is, when we see cyberbullying or when we see bullying, to approach those that bully, to have plans in place. You said they're messed up. Yes, to have plans in place to help those people, because they're going through a trauma, which is why they're bullying someone. To have a plan in place, because right now I can tell you, from my honest to God, from my honest experiences, I've been exposed to 2 different families that have bullying. And when I say the 2 different families, one family, their kid was bullied, and another family, their kid was bullied, right? And they were both of them are very, very intelligent, very, very intelligent adults, very responsible adults. They're not, disrespectful at all. They're very, responsible people. And they went through the processes of the educational system, 2 different states, completely different states. And the story pretty much ended up the same. One of the families, they moved their kids to another school, right? And actually, I'm sorry, both families moved their kids to another school, right? Why? They went through the processes through the educational system, and it didn't seem like the educational system in both 2 different states responded correctly. They had a lot of problems. The teacher said that they would try to separate the kids. They're in the same classroom, go to the same lunch, same kind of recess time. It's impossible. Teachers not really saying, okay, you stand over there and play, you stand over there and play. They're not doing that. So the interaction there still was interaction. There still was bullying. And then there was the he say, she say kind of thing. I know myself as a teacher, oh my gosh, when I had teacher parent day, and I know the kid was disruptive in class, and the parent comes and didn't believe me, because at home they're a different kid, right? And I brought up 2 sons myself, and I could see how they could be different when they're home and then when they're at school. And at one time I was a sponsor for the National Honor Society. I had the smartest kids in the classroom. I never wanted to do that again. You know why? Because they were so smart. They knew they were going to get an A. They knew they were going to do the work. They talked all day in classroom. I couldn't get them to settle down. They said, Mr. Hall, I'm going to do the work. I don't like those kind of kids where I can't, I couldn't be too disciplined with them, because I love them and they're great kids and they're smart kids. So, but my classes were out of control, So even the smartest kids, the most intelligent kids, can be out of control, So maybe that's part of the solution. We address the kids that are bullies, and we have plans put in, plans put plans put towards them, as well as the kids that are being bullied. Because right now, I don't think the system supports the victims as well as it wants to, or as well as it portrays that it does. Because you end up taking your kid out of school and putting them somewhere else anyway, because the kid is still exposed to the bullying. So I think maybe, and Dr. Kaufman, you can speak on this. Maybe, it's to treat the bullies as well, or have.
Agree with you. I absolutely agree with you. I recently in the New York Times, maybe 2 weeks ago or so, there was an article that really shocked me. And it again relates to cell phone, but also a larger issue in terms of the use of the cell phone, where there are maybe pages devoted to fights in different schools. So it could be this high school in Massachusetts, this high school in Arkansas, where kids are provoking fights, so they have content for the page, or they're recording the fight and they're posting it online. Okay? And there was a major article in the New York Times about the violence being encouraged. And they directly linked it. Of course, the link is also what is going on with those kids, that they see that as funny or gaining friends through violence or being cool by posting those fights. There's something not okay, with their empathy, compassion, pro-social behavior.
I won't say
there's
that.
a whole infiltration of those kinds of sites, and it maybe it's even like who can post the worst video of a fight. So there's a competition going on.
Yeah, I won't say something's wrong with them, because I will say that they're young. That old adage, the youth is wasted on the young. And when I remember as a teenager, when I used to watch horror movies, I remember watching The Wolfing. Was it called The Wolfing? Something like that. The Howling. Every time a victim got killed, I laughed. I thought it was funny. I was 14. I was a kid. And we live in a society of polarization and sensationalism, where reality TV has turned us into loving to watch a train wreck. We love Desperate Housewives of this. Of Real Housewives of this and Real Housewives, watching the train wrecks. Train wrecks. I feel like, I was going to say, what, rabbit? Train wrecks. And we love that now. And it's been sensationalized. Why wouldn't kids, oh my gosh, we got to get this fight up. And then I'm going to get more hits. We live in that world.
Yeah, I'm getting more likes. Yeah, but you're right. The framework is narrow about from their own perspective, but not having the developmental brain skills to understand what the impact, a larger impact is.
But that's human nature, right? That's human nature. So I won't scrutinize that, but the systems in place. We have to have systems in place that are safe places for both the victim and the abuser. I think that's part of the solution. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's definitely, or not think, I am going to be putting that on the agenda for January for Creating Team Human. We're going to bring it up. Let's have a global discussion about the topic, and we take it from there. Something has to happen. I agree. Systems need to be put in place. I agree. And we can't expect, governments or, government institutions to actually do it. Not going to happen. Okay. We're going to be wasting our time in bed. So it's on us.
Yeah.
It's on us. So the more unity we bring in society, the more we can make these changes and create these systems, because we are the majority.
And coming from, I trained in martial arts when I was a kid, when I was younger. And man, you know, whenever I do go on the internet or go on Instagram, I do follow like some you know, different taekwondo and different fight and martial artists, and even boxing. I fight, you know, and so when I see a knockout, I'm like, woo! I might watch it 5 times. You know, that doesn't mean that I'm gonna go out and be violent with someone, but the sport of, you know, martial arts and I just saw something yesterday with Bruce Lee, and he was showing how Bruce Lee does this. I forget what the tactic was called, but it was this tactic where you know, he moved his arm so the other guy moves his arm down, and then push that arm over here, and then by him being able to push his arm over here, he could strike really quickly. And I watched that like 3 times, you know. So you know, I love the art of boxing. I love the art of martial arts, you know. So I could see very easily how in real life, if someone is watching across the street, 2 people arguing or going at it, you know, they're filming it and then they're posting it immediately, and how kids, you know, could incite that, you know, because they want to get more likes, they want to get more loves, they want to get more, you know, views. You know, oh, I got the most views, I'm the coolest kid. You know, part of growing up is you know, that desperation of wanting to be accepted into a group. You know, I mean, that's, you know,
Yeah.
takes you a long time. Some people never get out of peer pressure. You know, some people never outgrow that, you know, depending on what type of organizations and groups you're in, you know. So that's a part of human nature. And again, putting plans in place to help people understand how to deal with peer pressure, how to deal with the pressures of life, how to separate things that are being polarized, and understanding how to discern that from real life, and how to have empathy, how to understand empathy is important, how, you know, and how to understand all the things we said today, how to understand, how to forgive yourself, how to have instantaneous forgiveness for others, how to understand that people may be smiling but living really dark lives, and how to be there for people. It's like a lot of plans that if we kind of start putting them in place on the basic school education, you know, on the what's the word, on the secondary elementary school levels on up, because it takes years to really develop an expertise at something. And so we need to develop an expertise for human beings to understand how empathy is important, and to understand, you know, how there's a wave in life, you know, and you can get through this. It's not just listening to somebody say it one time, listen to someone say it a couple of times, watching a TV program, because as soon as something bad happens to you, you're like, "Why me?" You know, and you have anxiety, and you go through the thing. You're going through again. There needs to be years and years and years put in play of an approach that helps you deal with these kind of things, and helps you understand these types of things are going to happen and how to get through them. So it's a process. You up for it?
Amen to that. Yes, you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
Life is a process, and you have to trust the process.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good talking.
Thank you so much,
pleasure.
Kansandi, for being
Yeah.
with us.
Thank you.
Nah, man. Thank you. Always a pleasure. Always a pleasure. So, I mean, we're going to be seeing you again in January. I'm going to work around your schedule and have the next episode of Creating Team Human done on a weekend, because, you know, that's such a schedule. Yeah. So I honestly feel, you know, there's value you can bring to what we're creating on that side of stuff. It's a very ambitious goal. Extremely ambitious. But yeah, episode 1 went well. So yeah, we're just playing it from there.
Yeah.
I'll actually send you episode 1. It's on Spotify at the moment. The YouTube channel
cool.
still needs to be created. Yeah, so check it out. You'll get an idea of what's going down. And yeah.
So I as a resource now, I came up with the idea. I don't know if I'm sure other people are doing it, but on YouTube, you can create a podcast page and then link up all the podcasts. So I did that. I sent it to you last night. You might not have seen it. It was like after 10 o'clock. And so I'm gonna put our 3 hour talk, and I'll put this up. So now you can go and you can click on my YouTube channel and then go click podcast, and you can see every single interview that I've ever had. And I think that's a great resource, for anyone who's doing a podcast, for someone to just go there and you can click through and look at all the different podcasts. They're all in one, on one page. It's really great.
Yeah.
So,
It also comes down to where's your strongest platforms.
Yeah.
For bulk majority of podcasters is YouTube. For me, for example, it's Spotify. I've dedicated most of my time and resources onto Spotify.
Mhm.
I do YouTube because it's like there, by the way. I created a channel. But I mainly concentrate on Spotify, music and podcasting.
Yeah.
That's like more for me, and more my home ground. So, but either way, it's a good idea,
Yeah.
to have it all on one. I think, especially from a guest point of view, like
Mhm.
if you're getting interviewed, a lot. That's great, for your audience, your fans, whatever you want to call them, to okay, I'm going on to Nzondi's platform now. I'm checking now all these interviews. That
Yeah.
works great. Yeah, it's evolving. It's evolving. But my man, thanks for your time again. I really do appreciate it. Dan,
Yes.
you breaking
Thank
records.
you. It was
I'm gonna
wonderful.
put that out there. You broke Diana's record. you broke the record with me. You broke another record here.
What record here? What is it?
The record on the length of the podcast, the
Oh,
episode
yes.
itself.
Yes.
Is this the longest that you've talked on this?
Yes. Yes.
Record breaker.
Yes.
Wow. That is awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, that's awesome. But I mean, just for me as well, even though we did 3 hours, 20 minutes, the value in there, I mean, it was enjoyable. There's
Thank
a
you.
lot to offer.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah. So thanks for all that you do. Thanks for the energy you bring to all the shows that you're on. Thanks for your contribution towards humanity.
Thank you.
Thanks for your contribution to changing the world to the best of our abilities,
Yeah.
and just, bringing more happiness to people's lives.
Yeah.
That's what we're trying to do.
And it's so crazy. It's so I use the word bananas all the time. It's just so weird how through tragedy and through trauma, a person can help others that are going through the same thing. Yeah. But I had to go through that to get to the other point.
Back to the waves. If each one of us here, you, Dana, myself, we never go through, downhills in our lives before, and we never, face demons and dark experiences and emotions and depressions and attempted suicides and so on, we wouldn't be able to be here on this platform, to help other people. We had to go through that to come up.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of like all the movies that are on like superheroes, right? And also for individual heroes, capital H and smaller H, where the hero's journey is going through what life's travails, and then through a transformational experience of the lessons learned, bringing back the gift, right, from that sorrow to love, continued love, and sharing it. So that the hero includes the sharing with others.
Yeah. To a writer, whenever you say hero's journey, that's a wonderful 2 words, because it reminds us of Joseph Campbell and his book Hero's Journey. And so thank you for even saying that. That's cool. That's like kudos to the author community.
Yes.
Yeah.
So once again, happy holidays to everyone.
Yeah.
And everyone on
happy
Earth.
Holidays.
Happy holidays.
And be safe. Be
Thank you.
safe.
And all listeners, help me out. We spoke about Spotify. I have a new song coming out with Jenny Sabi. It's called Dirty Angel. You can go on YouTube and look at the audio now. I have some rock songs, Hate on the Rocks, that are out now on Spotify. Go check them out. And just this past Friday the 13th, I had a song come out called Something's in the Dark, She's Gone, which was written from my first wife passing away and all those dark feelings that I had, but I put it in like a really hot, fast, hard rock type of vibe. So check it out under
Yeah.
NZONDI, Nzandi, Dirty Angels, Something's in the Dark, and Hate on the Rocks on Spotify.
Thanks, man. Thanks. Keep it up. Keep it up. I'm going to tell you before we leave, I'm going to tell you what I told you on my podcast before you left, at 58 years old. And I mean, even for even you, Dan, I mean, you guys are killing it right now. You know what I'm saying? I feel like, you're more ambitious than so many people around my age group at the moment. It's just like, one thing, we're doing this, and we're doing
Don't
that.
they say age is but a number?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
True.
Keeping the heart young and just, living your best life, making it fulfilling, knowing that finally at the end of the road, like, I went for it. I went for it.
And to quote Nzandi, I can make it.
No matter what happens, I will make it. No matter what happens, I will make it.
No matter what happens, I will make it.
Yes. And will is so powerful, to use that word will and to vocalize it. You're bringing the will of yourself. You're willing yourself into the situation where you're going to overcome your obstacles. So I will make it. It's very important to say that to yourself.
I will make it. I will make it.
Let's end and begin on those words.
Yeah. What you told me from the last conversation. Just one more thing.
Yeah.
The last conversation about that moment about I am. I am a great music producer. I am a great podcaster. I am a great, whatever it may be. Like from that day, that's where I'm at the moment. I am. So thanks, my man, for that.
So Dan, what we said about that really quick was that, so belief, it's kind of like wet and water, belief and faith. Confidence, according to my studies, con means with and fidence means faith. Confidence, to move in confidence means to move with faith. But to believe something, right, means to live in the now. To believe something means to live in the now, right? So you can't say, I believe, and think that it's going to be in the future, because it will always be in the future, right? So whatever you want to manifest, you have to believe that you have it now. And it does a couple of things. Psychologically, for your subconsciousness, it makes you feel like you have it now. Because if you say, I want to have something, every day is going to be the future and you never get it. So you have to believe something that you have it now. Even sickness, I am well. Don't say I will, no, I'm good. I'll be okay, right? I'm okay now. And when you live in the moment of now, you have a better chance of manifesting whatever it is that you want to manifest. So that's
including healing. Yeah.
Including healing. I am healed. You have to say, I am healed. And the power of saying I am, I haven't gotten to that apex yet, but I believe there's a lot more to I am. When God says I am.
And that I am. Yeah.
There's a lot more to that than a lot of us realize. And I kind of think that I am has something to do with understanding that when he says I am, he's including all of us as the original consciousness. And when you understand that I am means that you are too, you are part of the I am, right? Then you understand you can harness your power and you can manifest things much more easier. and much more in a beneficial way. So I am whatever it is that you are. You have to say that and believe that it is now. Believe that it is now. There's power in saying that. Yeah.
I am. No, 100%. 100%.
Yeah.
But yeah, once again, thank you for taking the time. I truly, really appreciate it. I know Diana does as well. Much love,
Thank
man.
you.
Much love.
Happy holidays,
Okay.
everyone.
We'll be in contact. Be safe.
Be safe.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.